Thank you very much for joining us today. We're happy to be joined today by a wonderful guest, Sampson, who is the mother of 6 children and therefore makes her a taxi driver, a personal chef, probably a cleaning lady once in a while, and the founder of the Live for Levi Foundation, which we're going to talk about today. She's also a sports enthusiast, a huge inspiration for me personally whenever time I see her working out and doing sports, and has a fitness and science degree. And I just found out today she's a landlord as well, which means she's a businesswoman behind the scenes, holding it together with her 6 kids and running a business. Thank you, CC, so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
And did you guys do life-defining events? Have you decided what those are going to be for your family?
We take a kid on a trip about age 10. They go by themselves on a trip with one of us. Things that we've been doing just on little term is just taking a kid out a week, once a quarter. So they choose like mom or dad, and you get one night to choose whatever you want to do with mom or dad. So that's kind of on a smaller scale just because our family's so huge right now. But all of our kids have had like an overnight trip, and chances our next one to go, he's 9. So not an overnight trip, but like a trip away with a parent.
And where have you taken them for trips?
Just like Colt took CJ to like a football game because that's what he's interested in. And then Sky, she's been more of like we get to go away on like she has her volleyball tournaments. So we've been able to get away that way and connect that way. So we just make sure we get away at least to have alone time with our kids about that age. So we haven't done like a humanitarian, but a lot of our stuff is honestly wrapped up in our Live for Levi events. We do every 6 months. Our kids are heavily involved with those. They help, they volunteer, they contribute, they promote. So I feel like those are a lot more life defining for them, like now, because they see what we've been through, and then they're able to help other families because they've been through it. And I think that helps them with compassion and love. And so those are more of our life defining events, I would say, that are annual.
Life kind of handed them to you, like,
yeah,
not, right? I mean,
exactly.
Or you took what was not an awesome situation into something that created that for your family.
Oh, I guess we're just crazy.
You're inspiring as well. I'm curious, when you get your kids involved in the like planning and doing the events and all that, what's the how do you see their hearts open because of that?
They become so invested in these people and their families. My son, actually, this last year, we did a fundraiser for a boy that was just turning 12 and loved football. His number was number 42. My son chose number 42 for his football jersey this year. He was affected that much. And it was just incredible just to see that, how much that just resonated with him. And like to honor someone that's passed away for their family, for another family. I just thought that was incredible. So just, I would just say they're just invested. I don't know. It's interesting. It's just a part of our life now.
Mm-hmm. And do they suggest like the family? Are they involved in picking the families?
So they will actually tell us of families that are struggling, like at their schools or whatever. They'll hear something and they'll come home and be like, Mom, we need to help this family. Or, sometimes they do. Actually, they do pick, and they tell me, they keep me in the loop, and they actually write personal letters to some of these families, which is really amazing for a 14 and a 12-year-old kid to do, and 9-year-old even. And then I even have my little kids draw pictures, and it's amazing. It really, I don't know how they do it, honestly, and it's so heartbreaking to hear like their side of the story. And then to hear like, I don't know, it's just really interesting because I was so caught up in my own grief. And then to be able to listen to what they've learned from it and how it's affected them. It's really heartbreaking, and then also amazing to see their own journey in that.
How long did it take you after Levi passed away for you to like be able to see their grief? Because I know like when you get flooded with grief, it's just a fog for a while. So I'm curious, how long did the fog kind of take you?
Oh yeah, I would say I didn't I couldn't function for a year. Honestly, I couldn't remember anything for a year. And my kids, bless their souls, they were just a product of survival for a while. I made sure I was there at their events. I made sure I got them breakfast and got them to bed and they had everything they needed. But when you're swallowed up in grief, you literally think about it for about 90% of your day, at least in my case. And it was all consuming. But my kids, I immediately took them to child therapy just because I didn't know how to navigate this. My son that was 5, Levi and Chance are 2 years and 2 days apart. So his best friend that was laying next to him every single night was all of a sudden gone. And so to explain that to a 5-year-old, I mean, I don't know. So I sought help. But I think the most healing thing for our family has been reaching out and helping other families. That has really, truly just kind of brought us together. And it helps you think like, like we have it bad, but someone might have it a lot worse. And so the things that they've learned that way have been amazing, I think, and healing for them to see that it's not just them that it's happened to.
Mm-hmm. I think one thing I really admire about you and Colt is that you've kept open communication around it. Like, and I think very often when someone passes, especially when it's unnatural and they're young and it seems wrong, that people just clam up and then there's no open communication and there's no ability to talk about the grief or talk about the hard stuff. And I so admire you and Colt and the way you guys
are
open about it. Like you're approachable and you'll talk about it. And can you tell me a little bit about what that's like for you and why you chose that path?
Yeah, I think the hardest thing that I ever had to do as a parent was to come home from the hospital and tell my children that their brother wasn't coming home. That was the absolute hardest thing I've ever had to do. I just remember my daughter just wailing and crying and my other son just saying, my brother, my own brother. He just couldn't process that. And he's like, that happens to other people, not our family, and I felt the same way. That it was just such a dream that day. It was just a nightmare, actually. And so from that moment forward, we just had this open communication, and nothing that you said was going to be thrown out. And so we've had some pretty morbid conversations for children. We've had questions like, what does he look like now? And, just really hard topics, but we've never squashed, or we've never said, no, don't ask that, or we don't talk about that. Everything is open. And I think that has helped so much. And sometimes like I'll hear one kid say like, don't talk about that. I'm really sad about that. And so they're open with their feeling, which is so good for me to hear that they are feeling and they're willing to feel. So like, anyway, I don't know if that made sense, but my son Chan, yeah, he was my one that I worried about the most, because he was just best friends with him right there. And just recently he just sobbed and sobbed and sobbed. And I was like, oh, there it is. Like I feel like we're getting somewhere, like where he's kind of processing and he's feeling, and he still has anger fits. He still has rage. Sometimes we just let him go crazy. We get him a hammer and we're like, okay, what's old in our house? And we literally take it out to the driveway. And one time he smashed an old printer that we didn't use anymore. And I just said, okay, go to town. You're mad, go to town. So we let our kids just let them feel, let them be. And then when we notice that they're having a hard time, that's when we have those personal times and take them and say, hey, what's going on? Let's go focus on what's going on, and maybe go focus on something else as well to help them kind of get out of their funk. But it's hard as a mom grieving and then trying to help your kids grieve. It's a tricky thing, but I think communication is key, and you can't squash anything they want to ask. I know people that don't want to talk about their loved one that passed away at all after. because it's too painful or hurtful. But and I'm not going to tell anyone how to grieve, because that's their own story, and I do not judge 1 minute or 1 second. But for our family, communication has been key.
Do you know about smash rooms? Do you have those where you are?
Yeah, I've actually heard of those. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a room, when you were talking about your son and the printer, it's a room where you can pay to smash stuff. So
Yes.
like, and it's that kind of stuff. Like, here's your baseball bat, your hammer, your
Like, go
whatever.
to town.
And then
Yep.
here's the printer and an old monitor and, you know, whatever. And you can, I think you can like decide to buy like a box of crap to smash, or you can bring your own. If you want. Like, but it's so good. I love to hear you say that you just give them like an outlet to let it out, because it is just an emotion, right? So if they can just kind of let it out.
Yeah.
So,
and you are angry and you are mad, and that's a good way just to let it go.
Yeah. And
sometimes I wish I could do that.
Maybe you should. That's next
Maybe
date night for you and Colt. I'll get a box of stuff.
And in fact, sometimes Colt goes, I know how you're feeling. Come punch me. Come punch me. He tells me to punch him. And surprisingly, it does make me feel a little better sometimes.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Boxing is a good sport.
Yeah.
What could you say to parents who are going through something like this, with specific ways to get your kids to open up? Like, I know you guys made it an open conversation, but do you have like specific questions you ask, or ways you open the conversation, or what are some of your superpower tactics that you have?
I think my biggest advice for parents, just for the parents alone, is just to get up every day. Find a reason to get out of bed every day. And if you do, good things happen. And I know like some days you really physically can't, you're just like, oh, this is awful. And you are going to have those days. But I would say it starts from the top in your family. So if the parents are getting out of bed, the parents are going on and doing their routine, and Colt and I call it pressing on. We don't call it moving on at all, because you have to press forward. You have to go, okay, I'm pushing, I'm going, moving forward. I feel like is more like, oh, we're going along, no, pressing on. That's more realistic for me, because you have to push every day. And so something my husband and I have done every morning is we did not waver from like our workout routine. So we got out of bed every morning. I made sure I made the kids breakfast every morning, got them off to school. And of course I had amazing help in that first year or two, like with my family. But for the most part, I did most of it. And then if I had to have time to grieve, I would call one of my sisters or my parents and just say, I need this time for just a minute. But I would say it starts from the top. So parents, as hard as it is, and as hard as that is to keep pressing forward, if you do, it will trickle down, and then your kids can see your example, and they'll say, if my parents are doing this and this is hard for them, I can do this too. This is super hard, and I can do this too because my parents are. And easier said than done, for sure. And everyone's in a different phase of life, and maybe some parent, like a mom, has to get up and just lost her husband, like you said, what we were talking about earlier. I can't imagine that, trying to get up and be a single parent overnight, just trying to get up and go. But that would be my biggest advice, is just get up, find a reason to get out of bed, and keep going.
Yeah. I think that's true when you're going through any like hard time, right?
Anything.
Like anything through adversity is grip on to what are the few routines, or like for you, I know it's exercise. For me, that's another big important one. Hydration is actually really important for me. Like if I don't drink enough water every day, then I notice just like I can't think straight. So I make sure that's where I start my day. But finding what are those routines that you can anchor into to press through. I like that. I'm going to borrow that from you, because you're right. Moving on feels like this, like pressing through is more what it feels like. Whereas moving on is sort of not dealing with it. It's just, we're
just moving on. Yeah. Pressing is more like you're pushing and you're doing the work to get through.
And you're letting it be something that'll help you grow and bloom, instead of something that squelches you forever.
Yes.
You and I've talked about this before, and I'd love to know your answer on this. If you have a friend, what would you say to somebody who has a friend going through losing a loved one, and what's the best way we can support our friends?
I think initially the best way to support is to listen. And I think that first little bit, you hear things that you don't want to hear from people, and they don't, it's all well-meaning. I feel like as a friend, the best thing you can do is just be a shoulder to cry on. And eventually you'll see their little needs and things that like you can do to help along the way. For mine, it was help with my kids. Like I said, when I needed that time to grieve, I just need that minute to just, because I have 6 babies, I just needed a minute to go away and just yell and scream in my car and be by myself. And so my sister noticed that, and she said, "Okay, I'm coming once a week, and that's your time to go." And so that was huge. That was huge for me. But I think initially 100% is just listening, and people will say funny things like, aren't they in a better place? And, people will say things that they're well-meaning, but things that are hurtful. Most important thing is just listen and be a shoulder to cry on. And because nothing can fix it. It's as sad as that sounds. There's nothing that can fix the loss of a loved one, even in other circumstances, as in like depression and anything else that's hard and adversity. Sometimes people don't have the right capacity to give you advice. So just listen.
So good and so hard to do. Like, having been on the side of the support person, it's hard to sometimes just listen. It
is.
Yeah. So
and not to try and fix.
And to think you're making a difference with listening too. I think you and I talked about that earlier, where I'm like, I don't think I'm helping. And you said, no, you are helping. It just,
yes,
it does
100%. That safe outlet is huge for sure.
Will you tell us about Levi and like who he was as a person? I know I've heard such great things. I wish I could have known him.
Oh my gosh. So he was 2, almost 3. He's 10 days away from his 3rd birthday. He was hit by a car, our neighbor, just right outside of our house, right across the street. Actually, he was riding his bike, and it was just literally a storm, like a rainstorm that came out of nowhere in the end of July, middle of July. And it just was this crazy, beautiful, I don't want to call it beautiful. It was just this accident that, to me, I feel like now was meant to be, which sounds so strange coming from a mom. But I feel like my son had bigger things to do. And I had to come to those terms and to be able to have peace in this life, to live without him. But he's just a warrior. That's how I would describe him. He got what he wanted. He would ask me when I was getting in the shower so that he could go and do what he wanted. He'd say, "Mom, when are you going to get in the shower?" And so I knew I had 5 minutes to just hurry, run, because he was a man on a mission, and he was a man at age 3. He legit did so many things that a 30-year-old man would do. It was crazy. And I know that sounds strange coming from a 3, but he lived his life. He lived fully. And that is where our family motto and our family statement came from, is live for Levi. Because he lived and he taught us how to live. And that's how I know that's how he wants us to live. It would live for him, because he doesn't want us to be sad. And that's how he wanted to live his life. And I think that was what was so hard for me, is he loved life so much that he and then when he was taken, I was just so sad about that. But I honestly feel, for my own personal peace, he had to move on to do bigger things. And so, just larger than life little boy that's changed my world and a lot of others. And we've started a foundation in his honor to help other families, which has been so healing and so incredible, to meet these other families that are struggling and going through any kind of diversity. We've helped people with cancer. We've helped people with that have lost a loved one tragically and unexpectedly. We've helped families that have been injured in an accident. It's just been so fulfilling and so amazing, and how beautiful that this all came from a 3-year-old little boy that passed away. And for me, as his mom, I feel honored and blessed to be able to carry on that legacy. And excuse me, what a blessing and a curse at the same time, because I miss him. And if I could see him right now, first I would spank him for leaving me. Everyone always said, what are you going to say to him first? I'm like, he's going to get the biggest reprimand from his mother for leaving. And then I'm going to hug him forever. And then I'm going to thank him for teaching me all that I've had to learn from this, and to be able to help so many other families. And I just feel so humbled and blessed. And like I said, cursed at the same time. It's a awful life and a beautiful life at the same time.
Yeah, it's interesting. Garth Brooks has, are you a Garth Brooks fan?
Love Garth Brooks. Yep.
Did you watch his documentary on Netflix?
Yes, I did actually.
He said, everything that's, let me see if I can do this, like everything that's a blessing is also a curse. And he, talks about it from but it was his hand movements where I can hear that in the back of my head often when I go through things that are hard. I'm like, wow, this is a blessing and a curse at the same time. And that's a hard thing to reconcile as a person.
Oh, yes. Any trial and any adversity in life, you have to make sense of. You have to be able to move forward, and how much stronger are you from it, and sometimes I don't feel that strong. And other times I'm like,
strong.
Good grief, I've been through a lot and I'm still here. And it's unreal, because sometimes I'm like, oh wow, this is, how do we keep going? But you'd find a way, and you do it, and you find the purpose and keep pressing forward.
I love you talk about his legacy and what a difference he's made in so many people's lives in less than 3 human years on this planet, right? Like how he because everybody I know who knew him says what you said about him. And then I feel like just talking to you, he demonstrates that for me. So
thank you.
If you could describe how to be healthy, wealthy, and wise in one word through all of this, what would it be?
I would say love. When you love, you feel wealthy. When you feel loved, you feel wealthy. When you love, you're healthy. And when you love, you are wise, because that's the biggest thing and the biggest gift you can give to someone in this life. And for me, I feel like that's the secret to life, is just love, unconditionally. And no matter the circumstance, no matter the problems, no matter what's been done in the past, life is too short to hold grudges, to hold on to things that might have been. It's just to love.
Yeah. I love that answer. It's so true, right? Like I have a saying that gets me through some hard times, which is, what would love do? Like when I don't know any other answer and I'm just angry and mad, or usually it's angry, like, what would love do? And that's the question that often pulls me out of whatever like downward spiral that could be tempting me. Yeah. Good. Can you tell us about your new project and what you and Colt are up to and where people can find you?
Yeah, so it's very much in the works right now, but we're trying to find a better way to help people who grieve through donations and gifts. And we're going to try and make it a little bit better of a platform for people that have that want to honor their loved one and want to help their family that's grieving at the same time. And so we're very, very, very much in just the process of doing that right now, and testing and figuring out what everyone needs. And it's such a hard thing to pinpoint grief, because it's so different for everybody. But our mission is to help the grieving family grieve a little better with unexpected loss. And hopefully we can get into, we're in a few funeral homes now. We're just hoping to get in a few more, and as we learn more and test more and grow more, and to be able to help grieving families.
Thank you. I think that's so awesome. Thank you for joining us today. And we're always happy to have you here. I know I've been lucky enough to interview you a few times and then know you as a friend, but thank you for joining us today and speaking so openly. And
Oh, thank you.
and I just I also want to say thank you for helping me feel. Because when you are like so real and raw and you feel, it opens up that it's okay for all of us. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.